Namaste everyone. Welcome back to the class. I'll probably take a short one today. We'll start. Om Bhadram Karnebi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashe Makshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Sushtuvangsastanobihi Vyashemadevahitay yadayuhu Swasti na indro vridhashavaha Swasti na pusha vishvavedaha Swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Swasti no brahaspatir dadhatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, continuing from yesterday, second chapter, first section, and we have to do the second verse today, which is on page 48 of Gita Press, Mundaka Bhashyam, Shankar Bhashyam book. So the first verse said that Ishvara, here the verse says Aksharam Brahman. Aksharam Brahman is said to be the cause of everything that is seen. And by driving the relation between the experienced world but natural, the question is being asked, is this experienced world real by itself? And is there another source to which it can be traced back? If I had in front of me a pot and various pots, different things, all made of clay, and I also have a lot of ornaments here, all made of gold, and I also have a lot of utensils made of glass, steel, and I have a lot of plants. All this supposing, imagine here in front of you. The question to be asked would be, all of them are in the experience by sight, by smell, by touch, minimum. And leaves hustling, so you can hear, supposing, or vessel falling, you can hear. So all of these are experienced. When they are experienced, the question can arise. Shaunaka has asked, tell me one thing. Now, if all the pots are made of clay, then they can only be reduced to clay. They cannot be reduced to gold. Same thing with all ornaments made of gold, cannot be reduced to clay. That is establishing the Karya Karana Bhava relation between, from where has this experienced object originated from? What is its origin? Where has it come from? One of the ways we say, okay, where have you got this from? So we trace it back to another Nimitta Karanam who received it as a gift. But a, another way of tracing it back is to see the material cause. What is the material cause of all the ornaments or of all the clay vessels, clay pots? What is the material cause of it? One is question asked is where has it originated from? Where has it come from? So if I've received it as a gift, I'll say so and so has given it to me. Is that really a causation? Is that a cause effect? It has come. See, the question is where has it come from? So the understanding can be it has come from such and such a place or such and such a shop or such and such a person has gifted it to me. This is not establishing any causation. Where has it come from does not make the person who's gifted it to you a cause of the pot or the ornament. For us to trace where has it come from, the tracing is to the material cause of the pot or the ornament, etc. Material pot, when the material cause is being discerned, then yes, when I know the material cause, then I know all the products, the karyams, the vikar that can happen of this material cause. One material cause, when I know that, I know all the products of that which can be made from it, clay or gold or steel, etc. Jagat, the minute we are conscious of our own identity, before that also is an experienced world with variety. Question to be traced by a discerning person is where has this come from? So, students who have arrived at Vedantic Vichar, one of the self introspections, self inquiry had been all this variety. Does each of them have a separate cause? Just as gold is a separate cause for ornaments, clay is a separate cause for all the pots, etc. All the variety that I see in creation that I experience, I don't have to imagine what I'm experiencing. Does all of these, which are actually so different when they are looked at, they have different properties, they have different qualities, they have different sense engagements also. My ear hears, my eye sees, etc. The variety of experience that is available to me as an individual, do all of them have separate causes each, or do they have one cause? It's a question to be examined. If they have multiple causes, then the outcome should be different. The multiple causal relations which have no connection to each other, they are not further traceable back to find their cause, one cause. If they were all having independent causes, there would be a flaw. What would be the flaw if there were all multiple causes there? Anybody can mention? I'm going to hold for a minute. If you saw my question, I'm repeating. pot, ornaments, pots, ornaments, utensils, plants. All of them I'm experiencing here right in front of me. I have placed them for you in front here. And the question is, trace them back. Where have they come from? That's the only question. Where have they come from? To be able to answer where they have come from, we are not answering, right? We are not answering them as um, we are not answering as someone has given, or it's not a nimitta karan. Causal, where have they come from? So, way of examining it is to find the material cause of it. So, the question I'm asking is that if there were so many things we are experiencing, and if each one had a separate cause, like gold for all ornaments and clay for all pots, supposing gold and clay are not linked together to further common cause, and they're all independent realities, then what is the flaw? Yes, multiple realities, also a flaw. Okay, correct, Dipali. Anything else? Anybody else can think of it? What is the flaw? If there were multiple realities, what would happen? If each of the experienced element was an independent causal relation, it came from its own source, and that source is independently existent. That means we have multiple independent existent truths, causes, which bring about the effect that you are now experiencing. So, if this was a possibility, so multiple reality is a flaw, because I'm presuming she means to say is Satyam, we have always said, is that which exists in the past, future, and correct, can't be traced to one origin. Yes, that it cannot be traced to one, and source can only be one. The question I am asking is, it need not be one. But like for pot, it is clay. For ornaments, it is gold. Clay and gold are not one. Supposing in the example, they are not further traceable back at all. The flaw will be that the experiencer who's experiencing them would not have one perception. It would not be one perception, because the experiencer of the varied, all of them, if they all had independent causes, then for the experience to happen, you also should be a part of that chain for the experience to fructify. Correct. There is a fundamental unity that we can't ignore. The flaw will be that if there were multiple realities, multiple causes by themselves existent as truths for each of the things that they produced, and that cause was only one. I mean, there were multiple causes, so only chains relating back to causes, and those causes will not be related back to trace it back to one. That chain is not there, supposing. That means multiple causes. Multiple cause would mean you, the experiencer, would not have the perception of one you, me, one. When I say I, when I say me, when I have the perception of an individual that I am, even in that perception of the individual, my perception of subject and objects being many, and subject is only one, that is unchanging. That points to the fact that if all the causes were different, this perception that I have of one experiencer of all these varieties would not be there. And we can't even imagine it because it's not so. It's a hypothetical question. It's not ever going to happen. Why I am pointing to this is the reason why Vedanta says there is only one karanam of the whole Jagat, of everything that is experienced. There is only one cause that you can trace it back to. And what is that cause? Shastra Vidya says Brahman is that one cause. And that Brahman, which is the cause, he said it in the first verse of this section. He says, all beings have emerged from there. And all beings are going to resolve in it. All dreams come from the dreamer. All dreams resolve in the dreamer. All beings are expressions, prabhavaha, born from that one cause, and that one cause is Brahman. Brahman is not directly changing. Brahman with Maya Upadhi, Ishvara, and Ishvara becomes the changing factor to produce the Jagat, to effect the Jagat, the world. This one cause and effect relation is pointed specifically to draw the attention to one irreplaceable, without which the Jagat would not be there. So, like yesterday's example, for me to recognize the rope when I'm seeing the snake, Shastra Vidya, Apta Purusha, the one who knows that there is no snake there and can see the rope and doesn't see the snake, that is called the Apta Purusha in this context, the Jnani. That Jnani tells me that this snake that you see is an effect. Cause is the underlying material on which the snake is. It is not saying at that point it is real or unreal. When the causation is drawn between Brahman as Ishvara and Ishvara with Jagat, when that causation link is established for the student, at that time it is not said that what you are seeing is false. At the point of causation, the connection is made to the student's mind of the one which the student has no perception of, cannot see the rope, because you can see one or the other. You both can't coexist. I don't know if anybody has ever seen this, tried this, but you realize that once the perception has got corrected, however much, even for playfulness, even if you try, you just cannot get back that illusory perception again with reference to the one that has got corrected. So you see a crack on this, and then when you go for a walk in a rainy season and you see a crack on the earth and you almost think it's an earthworm and you want to take a, not step on it, so you try and move away from it a little. And then as you approach it closer and closer, from far off it looks like an earthworm. And when you go closer to it, and when you've already changed your course and you look at it and it was a crack in the earth. But now that you have seen a crack in the earth, you wonder, how did you ever saw it as an earthworm? How was it even possible to have mistaken it? It was so evident a crack. The minute I see the earthworm there, it's made me do something. That earthworm makes me do something. I cannot at that point see it as anything else. Shastra very clearly says, Shankara very, very clear throughout his Bhashyam says, just examine your experience, and examine the experiencer. The more you examine, the more you look at it closely, you don't need to do anything else. There is no karma to be done at all to know yourself. So the minute I see the earthworm, This earthworm is seen on something. So, for me to connect to that on which it is seen, the cause effect relationship is drawn. Earthworm is the effect of earth, crack on earth. The minute I say there is a crack on earth, the effect I can say produced is earthworm. Now I see the earthworm, and then Shastra says this earthworm is not there at all. There is, in fact, no earthworm there. So now that the idea of crack on the pavement has come to the mind, I can look at it more closely because the idea has now come. Before that, I had no idea. I cannot imagine that this was not an earthworm. But the minute I'm told that earthworm is actually on a crack is the cause of this earthworm. At that point, if you watch carefully, you realize that that interest in the earthworm has diminished and you start examining crack. Is it a possibility that there can be a crack on earth? And when you start examining that crack on the earth, and sure enough, it is a crack, the minute the effect is gone, what was the cause anyway of the earth? Earth was never the cause of the earthworm because the earthworm was false. The relationship drawn was false. Earth was never the cause. The crack is not the cause of the earthworm that is experienced. So the entire relationship of cause and effect that has been deliberately, and I would say very, I don't know, because this is a Paurushayam, there are just no words. But if this was a masterpiece, like Vyasa's Mahabharata is a masterpiece of literature, if Shastra was a masterpiece ever, this is beyond normal intelligence. This is beyond drawing the oneness of creation to the source, deliberately introducing it to the student's mind so that the student's attention shifts away from creation towards the source. A very indirect way it shifts. There is a very internal shift because now there are two things that you can imagine in your mind, at least at that time: the crack on the earth and the earthworm. Earthworm is seen, crack I can't see, but the idea has got it, vritti has got formed. So by introducing the causation, between Brahman, the Karanam, and Jagat the Karyam, the implication is that the student's attention slowly shifts away from Jagat, the plurality, because now you can't find one source in the world. You will not find a source of the world in the world. And if you can't find the source of the world in the world, and it says Brahman is the source of the world, now Brahma Vritti has come to you. There is Brahman. This Brahman Vritti that has got established with the Jagat world, which is also your Vritti. You're experiencing it as thoughts. It's Vritti. So no rose is seen without a rose thought. No pot is seen without a pot thought. So the whole world we are experiencing as thoughts. Among these thoughts, another thought has been introduced as Brahman, the source of all these thoughts. And by introducing Brahman as the Karanam, I'm repeating myself because this is very subtle bifurcation in two visions. One is Brahman with Maya, with Ishvara Srishti, it becomes a changing reality. Shankara has though not used anything like this directly, but in the Parampara, that's the explanation. The recent Parampara. But then the other way, without introducing Ishvara and anything over here, straight away Brahman is said to be the cause. The idea Shankara tries to say if you do not introduce Ishvara, is that this causal relationship that is seen between Brahman is not the attribute of Brahman. Brahman is really not the cause at all. Brahman is causeless. It is ever there. It doesn't undergo any change. It doesn't become even, it has no, from Brahman's standpoint, there is no creation. There is nothing. There is nothing as in there is Brahman alone. From Brahman's standpoint, it is only Brahman. So, from the standpoint of the experiencer of, here in the context, earthworm, to the one who's seeing the earthworm, to the one who's seeing the snake, to the one who's experiencing Jagat, what, where has the world come from? If I'm going to trace them back into something which can again be traced back in the world itself, then it is anavastha. A material cause traced back into the world, from the world, as a part of the world, then that I will need a cause for, then that I will need a cause for. All the chain of causations will become anavastha, and you are landing up in infinity without finding the source at all. And that is a very misleading direction of inquiry. Shastra is outstandingly precise. It's beyond normal perception till you start appreciating at the level of your growth inside that unless and until this deliberation was done of introducing the causal relationship and making Brahman the cause of Jagat, by doing this causal relationship, they have drawn in the student's mind Brahma Vritti. And once Brahma Vritti is formed, nobody can say, I know Brahman. You can only stop at saying, I am Brahman. You cannot ever know. You cannot ever know that Brahman can be known. But now that the Vritti is formed, the question shifts automatically. What is this Brahman, which is the cause of this experienced Jagat, plurality? What is that Brahman? And that is the second verse now. This Brahman, he says, Aksharat Parataha Paraha. It is beyond this causal relationship is Brahman, whereby because the effect has been traced to the cause and the cause itself is actually only in relation to the effect, both of them are not true in entirety because they come as two sides of a coin. One won't exist without the other. But where are they? What is it? That Brahman status of cause also eliminated. And what remains is Brahman. That Brahman, Shankara said, is what you are experiencing as Aham. Shankara doesn't say this, I'm connecting it with Ramana. That Shankara says only here that Brahman that you're experiencing now seems to be confined in the limitation of the upadhi, your sharir, and it seems as if it's trapped in or it is only within. That Brahman, when it is in reference point to the body, seems to be inside. When I say consciousness, I say my consciousness, and my even hands, if you see suggestive, even the body language will say my consciousness. It refers back like that. When I refer my, I refer my, they come back like that. That means this whole this whole Jagat traced back to Brahman, and this causal relation gets negated by saying that body is the upadhi And in this upadhi, the outside and the inside is actually just arbitrary. They are just functional usages. There is no outside and inside to this Brahman, the causeless cause, the ever existent. That Brahman is Divyaha, is self effulgent. That self effulgent, Shankara says, is two meanings. Dhyotana means Swayam Jyotihi, by itself illumining, and the second is Diviva Swatmani Bhavaha, Alaukikaha. So it is not something which is an ordinary, it's not laukik, it's alaukik. Divihi Swatmani Bhavaha, light which is by itself, means Brahman is that self effulgent principle. It's self effulgent. So, what is self effulgent? Then he says, He amurtaha. In this verse, it's important to note that there will be many he. He is that indeclinable. He, indeed. Shankara connects them to say that by introducing he, there is a order as if established. It's self-effulgent. Being self-effulgent, he says, it is also formless. It has no boundary. It has no akar. It has no form. That one which is effulgent without form, Purushaha, is the Aksharam Purushaha, is self effulgent Aksharam. Sabahya Abhyantaraha. Because it is Amurtaha, it is within and without, means it is all pervasive. Amurtaha itself means it has no form, no boundary. Therefore, it is all pervasive. It is inside and outside. So, inside, outside are only usages, meaning only from the standpoint of the body. Body is that upadhi which seems to be dividing it as if like space, pot space, and Mahakasha and Ghatakasha. Like that, it seems to be dividing, but it's not divided. Ajaha, apranaha. It is also free of all movement. Prana. He amanaha. It is free of all manaha. So Shankara says here, manascha iti pranadi vayu bhedaha karmendriyani tat vishayascha तथा च बुद्धि मनसि बुद्धि इंद्रियाणि तत् विषयाश्च प्रतिषिद्धा वेदितव्याः. So all things that are done through pranas and through manas and through buddhi is all negated. By saying apranaha, all karmendriya activities negated, all karmendriya functions negated. Manaha, he, amanaha. It is not a mind. It is not a vritti. It is not nothing else about mind. Shupraha. It is pure. There is no other. Because it is formless, Swayam Jyoti, formless, it is pervasive, it is without prana, it is without manaha, it is pure. That is the Aksharat Parataha Param. It is that which is the Brahman when the causal relationship is also negated. Who is that Brahman? That Brahman, naturally, Shastra says, you are, because this Abhyantara and Bahya, along this is only in the sense of a creation. But when creation itself is negated, then what remains is the causeless Nirgunam Swayam Jyoti, yes, Swayam Bhati from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad language. It is it is self-illumining. It needs nothing else to reveal it. So with what is the Jagat revealed, that is the source, knowing which you know everything. That is Paravidya. I'll repeat the last sentence. So, what is it? Knowing which you know everything means it is that Divya Amurtaha Abahya Abhyantaraha Hi Ajaha Apranaha Amanaha Shupraha. That Aksharam, free of this causal relation, is the one with which, in the presence of which, everything is born, sustained, and also resolves in it. And that is what he says in this verse. I think I have covered all points. And then he gives some quotations. I think I'll end the class here. We won't have a class tomorrow. Next class, I doubt if I'm ever going to finish this next week. I will definitely Tuesday there'll be a class, and if it's going to be on Monday or not, I'll let you know. Yes. And if you say Diptiji was Brahman, well, Diptiji is Brahman. So you are also Brahman. You can do self-pradakshina. That's also possible. So with this, I think we'll end the class. If you have any question, you can write here. Otherwise, in the meantime, I'll just end the class. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhave. Yes, Atma Pradakshina, correct. Okay, everyone, anything else anybody wants to ask or say, you can. I'll wait for 2 minutes. And I was hoping next week also I can do a marathon. And maybe we manage to, but Maxim will finish us this portion. So let's see. I think I'll have to devise something. Yeah, I will. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.